Hey guys, Abel here, and in this video I would like to talk about a pretty common phenomenon that I see being addressed quite often on different message boards and guys asking about it. So I thought I would make a short video about it. And this is a phenomenon where guys who kind of know what to do with their nutrition, I mean, they have the whole thing dialed in, they hit the gym regularly, they get their protein in at each meal, they have the fundamentals of the most important nutritional habits dialed in, and they also don't do things like mindlessly snacking on pretzels between meals and things like that. But they have issues with overeating. And specifically, they have issues with overeating on what we would consider to be healthy, nutritious foods. So they don't gorge on ice cream or fries or candies or cookies or whatever. They overeat on things like peanut butter, or, if I look at my past 4 years, and I used to think that I was completely alone with this, but, traditionally my culprit foods used to be peanut butter, almond butter, all kinds of nut butters, nuts of various kinds, things like rice and oatmeal. And many people would say, like, who the hell overeats on a rice? But it is pretty common actually, and I see it all the time posted on like message boards, like, fuck you peanut butter, like, why do I overeat on peanut butter all the time? And first of all, I would like to tell you a quick anecdote from my life, which I think is quite illustrative with what's going on here. So a few years ago, I was very heavily invested in the so-called bulletproof diet, and I'm sure you've heard about bulletproof coffee and putting butter in your coffee and MCT oil and mycotoxins and all of that stuff.
The most satisfying, mentally enhancing coffee you'll ever have.
And they have a diet as well, which, if you don't know, it's a very restrictive diet in terms of food choices. So fruit is pretty much considered to be like a junk food on that diet. So the guy who founded the whole thing has a pretty straightforward stance on fruit. I mean, he pretty much says that
fruit is candy, and you should treat it like that. Fruit will make you fat.
Yeah, so I was basically only feeling good about myself if I ate grass-fed beef, free-range eggs, veggies, things like carrots in moderation, and pretty much that's it. Avocados. So I was pretty much exhibiting what many of us would consider to be a orthorexic behavior. But one thing that was interesting on that diet is that my cravings for these treat foods, like ice cream, like fries, like cookies, was absolutely non-existent. Like, it got to the point where those things started look like rocks. Like, they didn't look like food to me. But what I did have issues with all the time was things like almond butter, hazelnut butters, nuts of all kinds, because these things were kind of considered to be okay on that diet. Like, they were kind of part of the diet. Like, I kind of knew that I shouldn't eat the whole jar, but still I was going overboard with that stuff all the time. And I see this also with a lot of low carb cults and paleo people who don't have issues with eating a lot of like high carb, cookies, gummy bears, pancakes, because those things are just so off limits that it's not even on the radar of their mind. But they run into issues with things like peanut butter, almond butter, bacon, things like this, which are kind of part of the diet. And in those communities, it's especially bad because though many of the gurus in that community say that calories are not important, like you don't have to worry about calories. Basically, these people have no boundaries with these things. They have no conception of like how would moderation look like with this food. And if you combine this with the fact that overeating and even binge eating is something that we're kind of wired for from an evolutionary perspective. I mean, Stephen Guyenet in his book, The Hungry Brain, talks about the Hadza tribe, who are one of the healthiest populations in the world. I mean, they are lean, athletic, very healthy. But when they find, a source of honey, they basically do what we would consider to be subclinical binge eating behavior. I mean, they gorge down a liter of that honey because that's how they survive in that environment. And this, in combination with the fact that we have no real boundaries with these things oftentimes, is a pretty dangerous combination. Now, of course, we are a lot less susceptible for having no boundaries because we do understand the importance of energy balance and calories, but still, it is just a pretty well understood psychological phenomenon that humans are kind of lost without clear boundaries. So I would advise to you, and what this whole video is about, is that if you have a trigger food, whatever it may be, even if it's something like rice or oatmeal was for me, or peanut butter, reframe it in your mind and don't view it as a health food, but instead say that if it is something that is triggering me to overeat on a regular basis, and if I have trouble with moderation with this food, then it is not a health food for me. It might be healthy from a micronutritional or overall composition perspective, but if it is regularly leading me to overeat, then it is not a healthy food for me. And it's not about demonizing things or saying that these foods are evil or whatever. I mean, we all are a proponent of the whole flexible nutrition mindset, but do that reframing in your mind that just like drinking with your buddies or, eating cookies or Pop-Tarts or whatever, it's not bad, but it is something that you have to manage. So basically that was all I had to say in this video. I hope this little tip helped some of you at least who have had trouble with this. And please let me know in the comment section what things did you have trouble before? Like, what are your culprit foods or your trigger foods? Like for me, oatmeal, which is a very popular cutting food in bodybuilding communities, is a trigger food for me. I don't know why. It is just one of those weird things. So let me know what it is for you, and just let me know what you think of this whole video and the concept that I shared. And thanks for watching, and see you next time.
What I've watched with you, Dr. Drew, personally, just anecdotally from seeing it, is that you go overboard on things that are nutritious, but they can destroy a diet. Things like almond butters or peanut butters, or handfuls of nuts. Even though it's handfuls of nuts and it seems healthy from an outsider's point of view, it's still 2,000 calories in 20 minutes. I've watched you put away.
Yes, you have.